The sun dipped below the horizon, bleeding deep amber across the rocky hills of Israel. Long shadows stretched like fingers over the terrain. A shepherd stood on the ridge, his staff gripped firmly in his hand. Below him, 100 sheep settled into the tall grass. The quiet air filled with the rhythmic sound of their chewing. He began the count, his lips moving in a silent, practiced cadence. 1, 2, 3. He moved through the flock, his eyes tracking every movement. He reached 98. He paused, shifted his weight, and counted again. 99. He stopped. The air suddenly felt colder. He scanned the grass, the hollows between the rocks, and the darkening path behind the fold. He counted a third time, slower now, his heart hammering against his ribs. The total remained the same. One was missing. The silence of the hills shifted from peaceful to heavy. He did not hesitate. He set his jaw, tightened his grip on the staff, and stepped away from the flock, his gaze fixed on the encroaching night. He stepped over the boundary line where the grass ended and the sharp, broken shale began. The ground here was uneven, treacherous, and unforgiving. He moved with purpose, his staff probing the darkness ahead to avoid hidden pits. Every step took him further from the warmth of the flock. The wind shifted, carrying the scent of damp earth and something wilder. He stopped, his ears straining against the silence. A low, guttural howl vibrated through the canyon, distant but unmistakable. It was the sound of a predator marking its territory. His pulse quickened, but he did not turn back. He tightened his hold on the staff until his knuckles turned white. He knew the risks of the jagged terrain where the wolves prowled, yet he pushed forward. He navigated around a cluster of thorns, his boots crunching against loose stone. The path ahead narrowed, forcing him to squeeze between two towering rock faces. He was exposed, vulnerable, and completely alone in the dark. He was deep in the heart of the wilderness now, where the shadows held teeth and the night offered no mercy. He moved faster, driven by the need to find the one that was lost. The moon climbed, casting a cold, silver light that turned the rocks into jagged silhouettes. Hours bled away. The shepherd navigated a steep, narrow incline, his breath coming in short, ragged gasps. His boots slipped on a patch of loose gravel, and he lunged forward, slamming his palm against a sharp outcropping to stay upright. He did not pause to check the sting in his hand. He pushed himself up, his muscles burning with the strain of the climb. Every shadow looked like a threat, and every rustle of dry brush made him freeze, his heart hammering against his ribs. He stopped at the edge of a wide, dark ravine and cupped his hands around his mouth. He shouted into the void. The sound hit the canyon walls and bounced back, distorted and hollow. No bleat answered him, just the wind. He moved again, his pace slowing as exhaustion began to settle into his bones. But his eyes remained sharp. He crested the final ridge, his chest heaving, and looked down into the deep, narrow crevice that split the earth like a wound. The moonlight hit the far wall, but the bottom remained a pit of absolute black. He leaned over the edge, his hands gripping the cold, rough stone. Then, a faint shimmer caught his eye, a patch of white, stark against the dark, jagged rock. It was snagged on a thorn bush halfway down the wall. He squinted, his heart stalling for a beat. The lamb was there. He tested the ledge with his boot, feeling the shale crumble and slide into the abyss below. It was unstable, a sheer drop that offered no handholds. He took a breath, lowered his center of gravity, and began the descent. His fingers scraped against the limestone, searching for purchase in the cracks. He slid down, his weight controlled by the friction of his palms against the grit. Dust filled his nose. He moved inch by agonizing inch, his eyes locked on that small, shivering shape. Below him, the sound of a soft, rhythmic bleating rose from the dark. He reached the bottom of the slope, his boots hitting the floor of the crevice with a dull thud. The lamb lay huddled against the base of the thorns, its small frame trembling violently. The shepherd knelt in the dirt, his knees sinking into the loose scree. He reached out, but the lamb flinched, pressing its head deeper into the thorns. Its eyes were wide, reflecting the faint moonlight with a frantic, glassy intensity. He stopped his hand midair, holding his position until his own breathing slowed. He spoke no words, only let his presence fill the small space, a steady anchor in the dark. Slowly, he extended his palm again, palm up, fingers relaxed. The lamb hesitated, then let out a thin, broken bleat. He moved with agonizing care, untying the thick, heavy fabric from his shoulders. He did not pull the lamb away. He brought the warmth to it. He gathered the small creature into his arms, feeling the rapid, uneven thrum of its heart. The lamb was light, fragile, and cold to the touch. He pulled the edges of the fabric tight, tucking the corners beneath its trembling body until it was entirely encased. The biting wind whistled through the crevice, but the lamb was now shielded, held firmly against the heat of his chest. He felt the tension leave the small frame. He stood up, his legs stiff from the climb, and adjusted his grip. He stood for a moment, letting the lamb find safety in his hold before turning to face the path. The ascent was far more grueling than the descent. Every step up the jagged slope demanded a heavy toll from his exhausted muscles. He dug his boots into the loose gravel, searching for a solid foundation that the mountain refused to provide. Halfway up, a cluster of shale shifted under his weight. He slid back, his heel catching on a sharp outcropping, and he slammed his shoulder into the stone wall to keep from falling. The impact sent a jolt of pain through his frame, but he did not let go of the lamb. He gritted his teeth, his breath coming in sharp, ragged gasps that burned his throat. He shifted his weight, found a new foothold, and pushed upward with a desperate, rhythmic intensity. His feet were bruised and raw, but he forced them to move, one agonizing step after another. The wind whipped against his back, trying to push him toward the edge, but he leaned into the incline, shielding his burden from the gale. He climbed until his lungs screamed for air and his vision blurred at the edges. Then, the incline leveled out. He crested the ridge and saw the dark shapes of the flock waiting in the tall grass. He reached the center of the fold, knelt, and carefully set the lamb down among its kin. The rescue was complete. The story of the shepherd is not a relic of the past, but a living promise for this very moment. It reveals the heart of Jesus, who operates with that same relentless, searching devotion. He knows your name as clearly as the shepherd knew the count of his flock. When you feel lost in the middle of a crowd, or when the shadows of fear grow long in your own life, you are not forgotten. Jesus is the one currently moving through the dark, seeking you out. He does not wait for you to find a perfect path back to him. He does not demand that you fix your own mistakes before he arrives. Instead, he comes to where you are, crossing the jagged terrain of your doubts and the sharp rocks of your uncertainty. He is present in the quiet moments of your anxiety, watching over you with an unwavering focus. You might feel small or overlooked, but to him, you are the one he has set out to find. He knows every mistake you have ever made, yet he chooses to stay by your side. Those errors do not push him away. They do not cause him to turn back or abandon the search. Instead, they are the very places where he plants his feet, refusing to leave you to the shadows. You might carry the weight of past choices, but his presence is heavier than any regret. He does not offer a temporary fix or a fleeting glance. He offers a permanent, unshakable commitment. When you face a difficult day at school, or when a moment of doubt clouds your vision, remember who is watching over you. He is the active protector who stands guard over your life. He calls you by name, and that call is louder than any accusation you face. He never, ever gives up on you. No matter how far you feel you have wandered, his hand remains extended. Tonight, when you sit down with your family, take a moment to look around the table. The same protection that keeps you safe in the dark is the thread that connects everyone in your home. Ask them this simple question: when did you feel like Jesus was taking care of you? Listen to their answers. Hear the stories of how they were found when they were lost, how they were carried through their own difficult valleys, and how they were protected when the way forward seemed impossible. Sharing these stories does more than fill the quiet. It anchors your heart in the truth that you are part of a larger flock. It reminds everyone present that the same shepherd who knows your name is the one watching over them too. Hold on to these experiences. Let them be the evidence you return to when the world feels uncertain or the path ahead grows steep. You are never left to wander alone, and you are never without a place to belong. You are deeply, unconditionally loved. You are part of his flock, and you are always truly safe in his care. Every day, every night, and in every step you take, you are held by a love that never stops searching and never lets go.